Hi all, nice to see you all in this APSCE webinar. Um, this webinar is done by the SIG2, CSCL, and Learning Sciences, and we're doing this as a panel discussion. I'm Lenka Schnaubert, I'm from the University of Nottingham, and I'm SIG coordinator. And with me, I have Elizabeth Cole, who will coordinate the Q&A later on. We are very excited to have three panelists here today who are experts in leveraging AI for learning and collaboration. And our panelists are, I don't know if you can see the videos here because I can't see all of them. So Jason Lodge from the University of Queensland in Australia. We have Annie Nguyen from the University of Oulu in Finland. And we have Yun Ben from the Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. What we will do is we will center our discussion around three broader question blocks, kind of. So what are the current capabilities of AI as a learning partner? So what can AI do? What can't it do? In what way can AI be a collaboration partner in the current form? But also what are possible downsides and benefits, risk and opportunities, meaning what challenges do students meet, but also where would we want AI to be a learning partner, or where might society gain, where might society not gain from this? What might we even lose? And last but not least, kind of where are we heading? Where may the field be going in the next years? And this includes research direction, but also obviously application. We will also have some opportunities for Q&A. So I'll ask all attendees to post questions they may have into the Q&A. Please don't use the chat for this. You can use the chat to communicate with each other, but for the Q&A questions, please put them in the Q&A form. To start with, I want to ask the panelists to give us a short introduction into their work in relation to the topic. We scheduled 5 minutes for this with a bit of leeway. And yes, I think I would ask Jason to begin if you want to. Jason.
Thank you, Lenka. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where in the world you are. Nice to see you all, well, at least virtually. So yes, my name's Jason. I'm from the University of Queensland. I'm currently on Gadigal land in Sydney, Australia. So not at home at the moment, but it's great to join you, and thank you for the invitation to be here. So there's a couple of things I want to talk about broadly, I think, about what is happening in AI here in Australia, and I think globally, because I've also just done a major review for the Australian government on this, and then thinking very specifically about the topic for this afternoon, this evening, or morning, depending on, again, where you are. So I think it's fair to say that the questions about the ongoing impact of AI, particularly generative AI, are still swirling around. A lot of people that I've been talking to lately are not certain that it's going to have the kind of impact that perhaps we were talking about a year ago. I'm less convinced of that. I think that we certainly are already seeing a significant impact of generative AI in particular, but certainly AI more broadly. And I'm reminded, many of you will have heard this, of Amara's law, which is that the impact, we will underestimate the impact over the long term, even if we're overestimating the impact of this kind of technology in the short term. So I certainly think that we are going to see a significant impact, and that is the case, I think, if the technology doesn't develop any further from today forward, which seems unlikely. So much of the discussion that we've had in Australia, and again, that I've seen around the world, has been focused on the problem of cheating and the potential of students using generative AI to produce responses to assigned tasks. I think that that is warranted to some degree. However, and I think this starts to bring us to the topic for our discussion today, there are deeper problems beyond this acute issue that is the issue of potential cheating with this technology. And it really does come down to thinking about the role that generative AI and AI more broadly is going to play in the learning process. There's a few reasons why I think that this is a particularly critical question. One is that I think part of the process of answering the questions about what good learning looks like now that these tools are here helps us respond to the acute problem of cheating. So the better sense we can get of the impact that AI has on our learning processes, I think the better placed we are to think about how we might change the way that assessment is done accordingly. So why do I think that this is a particular issue? And this is where some of the work that I've been doing with my team has been focused. We've all heard the story about AI is kind of like a calculator, and education adjusted to when a calculators came along and everything was fine. We figured out how to do that. I would say that this technology is fundamentally different, and we've really been trying to figure out why that is. And there are a couple of really key things. It's probably not surprising to any of us here, but I think it's worth being crystal clear about what the human-machine relationship is here. One is that there's basically no barrier to engaging with this technology at all. In order to use a calculator, you need to know at least something about mathematics. Otherwise, you don't know what the symbols on the calculator mean. This is a technology we can converse with in plain language, right? Whether that's English or any one of 100 other languages that you can converse with this technology. So there is no entry point. You don't need to be able to code. You don't need any background knowledge. You can just pick it up and use this straight away. A second reason I think is that we've heard a lot of talk about prompting and prompt engineering. And yes, to come up with really sophisticated prompts is a skill, but I think to come up with reasonable prompts, you just ask it. This is one of the things that somebody told me right at the beginning of this adventure that we're on, that if you can't come up with a good prompt, ask the AI tool which prompts you should give it in order to do a particular task. And that was really good advice because it's pretty good at coming up with prompts. Again, not the best prompts in the world, but it's good enough to get started. So there's a couple of reasons there I think that are important. The third one in terms of the human and machine relationship that I think is critical here is that although generative AI is a tool, it has the impression that it is more like an agent. So it's a tool that kind of acts like a peer in some ways, right? Even though I don't think it has free will or consciousness. I don't think any of those things are true, but it certainly looks like and simulates an agent, kind of like a peer. And it makes mistakes like a peer potentially would. So to me, I think that there are some really fundamental human-machine relationship components going on here that are really important. So the question is, what do we do about all of this? I think one of the most critical starting points here is to really focus in on what does this mean for learning and learning processes. I think the human computer interaction here, or the HCI human machine relationships, are really important. I think we still have a lot to learn about that. And I think fundamentally answering some questions about what that relationship is and how that works in terms of facilitating learning processes is really important. I'm less convinced about the discussion about AI literacy. I think a lot of the things that are wrapped up underneath this idea of AI literacy are kind of digital literacies that we've known about for a long time. We don't hear people say things like, what about internet literacy or Excel literacy or PowerPoint literacy? These have kind of become fundamentally integrated into the way that we work. And I see AI as a similar sort of thing over the longer term. So I'm less convinced about the AI literacy piece than I am about focusing on learning and human-computer interaction as a starting point. There are also some key elements here around critical thinking, creativity, these sorts of things that we tend to think of as kind of uniquely human in some way. And I think that they're important, but I'm not sure that they're sufficient. Now, one of the reasons that I say that, and this is the point that I'll end on, is that we've collected an enormous amount of data from students over the last 18 months. And there is one consistent pattern that separates students who are really good at using this technology in their own work. This is unprompted. This is students who are just using these things in their day-to-day self-directed learning. And that is students who understand their own learning and their own learning patterns and how to navigate the kind of environment around them are the ones who are really benefiting from using AI in their study. It's not that they have a high level of technical skill. It's not that they understand programming. It's about their learning, because this is a tool that we can interact with in very different ways from the sorts of technologies that we've had in the past. So those are the things that we've been working on and thinking about. And hopefully that gives you a sense of where we've managed to get to with that conversation. Again, thank you for the invitation to be here.
Thank you. I think we'll get back to many of these points during in the next 1 and a bit hour. So to first wrap up a round of introductions into the work, Yun, would you like to continue this?
Okay, sure. May I share my screen? Jason just share with us some of our picture. I'd like to show more details, more focusing on the study I'm currently doing. Yeah. Okay, hi everyone. I'm Wen Yun from Nanyang Technological University. It's my great honor to share with you our studies, and my study focuses on using the emerging technologies to promote interactions in the classroom learning environment. And most of my studies focused on the Chinese as the second language learning. So in line with our today's theme, I'd like to share with you my studies about the AI-enhanced seamless language learning for young learners. The study was proposed because in Singapore, Chinese is taught as a second language learning, but students, their backgrounds are quite diverse. And for second language learning, we know that ideally we can provide students the opportunities to practice the target language in the real life situations. But
Sorry
however,
to interrupt.
yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Did you share some screen? Share your the slides?
Okay. Hold on. Have you seen it now?
Now we can see the slides. Thank
Okay,
you.
good. Never mind. We didn't miss too much. Yes, the third point is that the value of the generative AI in language learning, we have widely acknowledged its value. But when we target to the young learners, there are many variables we need to take considerations. So that's why as early as the beginning of the 2022, we proposed the AI powered seamless vocabulary learning project, in which we developed a system named as Archie. So in the Archie system, it can help to bridge our students' home-based individual learning and their classroom-based collaborative learning. And the Archie system embedded the AI functions like forming AI functions, including the automatic feedback for students' handwriting and feedback for their pronunciation. And we also automatically mark the sentences students made by themselves. In the classroom environment, the system can help to recommend the sentences that students made in the home-based learning, and in this way to promote their group discussion in the classroom learning environment. So here you may notice that the project was get started before the release of ChatGPT in November 2022. So with the generative AI, we have some new possibilities to improve the system. And in our current stage of the project, Archie 2.0, we are focusing on two areas. The first one is to improve the accuracy of the automatic marking, and another one is to refine the collaborative learning activities to engage our students in the classroom collaborative learning activities more effectively. So here, in short, we are currently focusing on using the generative AI to promote the feedback. We need to provide the special trainings. So that's why we can provide the customized feedback to our students. We need, here I use the term customized feedback rather than the personalized feedback, because we need to make sure that the content we provided, the feedback we provided to our young learners are not contain the violent content, and the vocabulary we are using should not be on the curriculum. Yeah, so that's why we need to fine-tune the algorithm to make sure that they are customized to our students. And another thing is that we need to make sure that the feedback we provided to students are understandable to young learners, to second language learners. Yeah, and more importantly, we need to make sure the feedback provided can attract students' attention. Yeah, so that's why in our system, we use the multimodal feedback and use the gamification for attracting the students' attention and promoting their reflection. Yeah. Here I prepared the examples, but I don't think we have the time to go to the details. Just want to show you that the model feedback, we use the text to image feedback to provide the image feedback to our students' sentence making, together with the text and the audio feedback to help students to improve the content of the sentence and the grammar of the sentence. And the gamification mechanisms, such as the using of the badge, also has been embedded in the system design. But the system is still under development, so I hope in the future can share with you more. Yeah, so that's all about myself and my current study using the AI. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, and thank you for giving also a visual into the current project. Andy, would you like to continue?
Yes, thanks, Lanka, and thank you, Jason and June. Very nice insight into this topic. Actually, I mean, I'm from Finland, far away from Jason. I mean, the other side of the earth. But we also talk a lot about AI these days here as well. And from the question, what AI can do this day, I mean, follow up with the discussion you heard from Jason. Many people think AI as a calculator or something that to use. I will show you the short video and some slide demonstrate. And because I think it's better for you to see what AI can do now rather than just listen to people only. Wait a moment. I will try to share my screen. Can you all see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
My son, and I'd love you to tutor him on this math problem, but don't give him the answer. You can ask questions and nudge him in the right direction, but I really want to make sure he understands it himself. And he's here in the room, so you can talk to him directly.
Of course, I'd be happy to help. Let's look at the problem together. Can you first identify which sides of the triangle are the opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse relative to angle alpha?
All right, so I'm pretty sure this is the angle alpha right here, right?
Perfect. That's correct. Now, looking at the triangle, which side do you think is the hypotenuse?
Really,
Remember the hypotenuse?
I'm not totally sure. I think it might be this one, but I really am not sure. This side AC.
You're close. Actually, side AC is called the adjacent side to the angle alpha. The hypotenuse is the longest side of a right triangle and is
How do you think about that? I mean, research on AID, I mean, on AI in education has been for decades. It's not something new. However, mainly discussion in the public has been raised recently after the release of ChatGPT because the outperforming ability of ChatGPT. However, it's also created effect. Many people think about ChatGPT and think about AI as a chatbot only. And because, I mean, most people are using the ChatGPT as a chatbot and ask answer and got the answer in text form. But from the video I just showed you, that's a GPT model 4.0 model. It's not released to the public, yes, but to some partner of Microsoft. This demonstrates what AI can do right now. It can not only understand the text, but also can listen to you, can see what you're writing on the paper. And that's also mimics some of the capability of human. And from that video, one of the questions that can AI be the tutor in the long run? Because it's only what it can we do now and what's reliable and how we will use it and how it's different from the human tutor. And because when we're talking about the capability of AI. First of all, you can see from the screen here, all the new article. I think all you are here, at least hear some about it. ChatGPT can crack the Turing test now, and all the work with GPT has increased productivity in different tasks, including writing tasks or development tasks. And it's not only a test, it can be supported in different tasks as well, not only in writing, but it can be used in photo editing, movie editing, can be used like making music, creativity, industry. So there's a different capabilities of generative AI these days, going to different direction. But in education as well, I mean, Jason talked a lot about how we were discussing about the threat on academic integrity, how students use AI to cheat. So I will not talk about this one much to repeat him. But rather than that, we try to study how it exactly happened when the student learn with ChatGPT. And we found that it's not like you ask ChatGPT and you got answer. Your interaction with ChatGPT, your interaction with generative AI is matter on output as well. And that's come back to the discussion earlier by Jason that the human AI interaction, the human AI relationship or collaboration, understand each other, how it can happen. I will stop saying as right now, and I will talk about next part. So that give you some brief idea about the capability of the generative AI these days. The question will be what we need to know and what we can prepare for that. Because first of all, in education, we have to define the role of AI as the collaborative learning partner. AI can be the tutor, has been researched a lot, or it can be simply the source of information. And at the moment, many studies have treated AI as a source of information. It's not wrong. It's something AI is very good at. But as you can see from the capability of AI, it can step beyond that role. It can be the facilitator of your learning in groups. And it can be also in the peer, in the knowledge construction. And in each of those roles, I think there's a lack in research, so in how AI performs in each of those roles. Because as when we are treating the generative AI, the technology as a whole, as one. But as a human learner themselves, in the collective learning group, each learner have different role and different way to approach problem or different path in the group learning. So same with AI. And I think those one need more research into. And actually, I think I turn off my screen quite early. Here's some visualization of the study we are doing. Because as I mentioned, many research or discussion going on consider AI just as a chatbot. But from our perspective, I think AI is step beyond from a simple chatbot now. It can have different form. It can be the actual entity interact with the human in the learning process. It can be the robot, or it can be the holographic agent, which is we are working on now. And we found that not only the information or content AI provide to us influence on the learning process, but also the presence of the AI in which form. And I think that's go back to the discussion by Jason. I completely agree with that. The future research on education technology must focus more on the human AI interaction and more on the collaboration, how the collective effort can boost forward the learning process in long run, but not only short run. Hopefully that gives you some ideas.
Yes, thank you. And before we jump right into a discussion between us and the panel, I just want to remind the attendees that if they have questions they want to see in the Q&A, please put it in the Q&A form and not in the chat. Thank you. Okay, to initiate the discussions, we already touched a lot about on what roles can AI take and the focus on learning processes that is important and so forth. And we had some examples of how learners can interact with AI, but maybe a bit more to the point. What do you think are the current capabilities of AI as a partner in collaborative learning? And how can this already look, or where where I can't, so what can AI do in this respect and what can't it at the moment? So I'll just basically open the panel and ask you panelists, what do you think? Someone wants to start.
Yes, I can start first. First of all, as I mentioned briefly in the video in my talk earlier, and you can see from the video also from the slide here, and I think that's what I think AI can do now. They can interact with the learner in many ways, not only from a test format, but they can interact with the learner verbally, non-verbally, and also have the interpret of information what the learner presents. And that's what I think AI can do now. Apart from that, AI can also hold the expertise knowledge. We can feed different knowledge to the AI, and the capability of holding information and knowledge of AI, I think is outstanding. And I think that's the advantage of AI. But on the other side, I think what AI cannot do now, there's a lot. AI is not the solution to the world yet, at least I believe, at least in the next 5 or 10 years in the foreseen future. First of all, the contextual understanding, AI very weak on that sense. And the dynamic reasoning of the learning process, they are very weak as well. And even with the normal technical aspect, many of them will influence on the learning process, like the processing time, especially in the collective learning. Then the speaker diarization is the big issue in the technical world now. It's difficult to distinguish who are speaking person. It's very easy for us as a human. We can identify very easy who's a speaker in the group, but for AI, it's more difficult. And I think also in the part of emotion motivation, because when we're talking about learning process, many people think just only about knowledge information. But research in learning science show that emotion motivations played a big part in the learning process. And also many work on AI in recent years, especially those in the emotion AI, they have proposed different model, different approach to understand the human emotion with AI model. However, that does not reach a point of reliable or a point of application back to the education setting yet. And I think that's actually those challenges need to be improved in the future. But not only waiting for a technical, from the pedagogical side, from the education side, my main ideas about opinion about where it need to be improved, how the human learner need to interact with the AI, learn with them, and utilize the AI rather than rely on those. I think that's a big part of a big question for us as an education scientist now to answer. And hope, yes, and I think that's our opinion from my side.
Jason, do you want to jump right in, or Yun, do you want to?
Okay, perhaps I can add something based on just Andy shared with us. Yeah, I'd like to first say something about the role of the AI can play in the CCL environment. In addition to the role that Andy just mentioned, that as a partner, AI as a learner that learn together with students, actually, students also can help to teach the AI, then teaching in the different way. And another thing is that if we pay attention to the AI's role as a tutor, then perhaps there are two kinds of the feedback we should pay attention to. One is that feedback as an interaction. Then that means the role of the tutors just help to promote the students' interactions. But more importantly, AI plays a role as a tutor. So that means can model students to do better and can help students to change their behaviors, can give some academic related feedback to the students. Then that means it requires higher to the AI agent compared with just promoting the interactions. That means the feedback as the intervention, we need to do more. Yeah. And regarding to in the CSL, the specific context, actually, I also ask myself that if AI plays a role as the team member, then what kind of the team member we need? So if we think about the the key elements of the collaborative learning. I guess we are all familiar with, for example, promoting the individual's accountability, facilitating the positive independence, something like that, and also promoting the interactions and the group processing. All of these are the key elements of the collaborative learning. Then AI agent perhaps can do better to promote, for example, the group to do the students to do the reflection, to do the regulation, and promote the interaction. But at the social skills level, perhaps that part is not AI good at it, because we know that AI is not so good at the deep empathy and deep emotion, and the empathy part is not AI good at it. Yeah, but the good thing is that sometimes when a group can performance the good, it doesn't mean that all the group members have to be perfect. Yeah. So in this part, I think AI used in the educational context, perhaps our tolerance to the error will be a little bit higher than compared with AI used in other fields. Yeah. Okay, that's what I can think about what the AI can do, and perhaps AI they are not good at, in my opinion. I pass to Jason.
Thanks, John. I think it's worth being really careful about what it is that we're talking about here. And I noticed that there is a question in the or comment in the Q&A. So I'm going to talk about text-based large language models, that version of generative AI. And I want to be very clear here that what we're talking about is extremely sophisticated. However, it is some databases and some algorithms on a server farm, most of the time somewhere in North America. But our way of existing in the world is embodied, embedded, enacted, extended, the 4 E's of cognition. It's very different to be a human who is not kind of a brain in a vat, but we are intimately connected with our bodies and with the world around us, and that influences the way that we think in a way that some algorithms and databases on a server farm somewhere just cannot do. So a lot of what we've been focused on recently is this idea of abductive reasoning. So abductive reasoning, if you're not familiar with it, is, and many of you will be, is making an inference to the best explanation on incomplete data, if you like. Humans do this all day long. Like, it's part of what it means to be a human. But often when we're making those inferences, we often do that in human and social situations. So you walk into a room, you see 2 people talking to each other, you're reading their body language, you know who these people are, you're thinking about their personality, you're drawing on your whole life worth of experience of being around and socializing with other humans to make an inference about what is going on in that situation. It's non-Bayesian, it's not simple algorithmic, not that I'm saying large language models are simple by any stretch of the imagination, but there is something fundamentally different about what it means to be a human in a social environment and make those kind of inferences that machines can't do in their current form. Now, maybe we're not too far away from that. Maybe we're 100 years away from machines being able to do that. We don't know. But at the moment, that's not the reality that I think we're dealing with. What I think is happening, though, and I'm not saying this in response to any of the comments that have been made, but certainly when I talk to other people and the kind of ways in which they interact with large language model-based generative AI, is that it is almost kind of hacking the way that we interact with other people and makes us feel like it's more like a human than it is like a machine. And what I mean by that is that for most of us throughout our lives, the only other time that we interact with something that is representing language in the same way that a large language model does is when it's another human. And when we see language being produced in that way, whether it's verbally or via text, we assume that there is a consciousness there that is like us, because that's been our experience through our whole lives. Right? When you get language produced by an agent in the way that a large language model produces us, it feels like the interactions we have with a human. That's why many people will say please and thank you and these sorts of things, because they're slipping into an interaction that is familiar and is the way that we would interact with humans. But these are machines. These are machines that work in a very specific way. Yes, they're very sophisticated, but they're not like we are, and they're fundamentally different. And I think it's really important that we're clear about what those differences are, not because we need to understand what bits are left for humans as AI, and particularly generative AI, becomes more sophisticated and the large language models get bigger. But I think it's also important for thinking about how we can get the most of humans and AI working together in a collaborative type setup. So if we're really going to push towards something like Inge Molinar's idea of a hybrid intelligence, then I think we need to think carefully about what each of those parties brings to that situation. Because I think that the differences between humans and machines, the closer that we get, become more important.
So drawing on this, what can currently bring both sides to the table, or what is it that AI at this point can bring to the table for a human AI collaborative learning situation?
I'll start this time if you like.
Yes, please.
We're finding some interesting thresholds. I'm going to answer this question in a slightly roundabout way, but we'll get there. And many of you will have seen this with friends or colleagues or people who have not necessarily engaged with generative AI, and all of us are in different places on this journey. There are 3 thresholds that we've been working on. One is just engaging with a generative AI tool at all, right? There are still a lot of people who haven't engaged with these tools whatsoever in their work. About a third of the students and about a third of the educators that we have surveyed fit into this category. So that's the first kind of threshold. The second threshold is partly what I talked about before, is that seeing this as a different type of technology. So it's a technology that you can potentially interact with in different ways. And I think that this is really fundamental to people, because a lot of the people who have not engaged with these technologies much are using them like the technologies we've seen in the past. So a very common thing that we see with students is that they use a large language model, generative AI tool, like they would a Google search, because that's the kind of transactional arrangement that they've had in the past with technologies that they're familiar with. So I think once you get beyond that and start to see that it's not just about giving it search criteria or asking questions, but you can actually have a much more of a two-way interaction where you can ask a generative AI tool to prompt you instead of the other way around. You know, here's something that I've done, give me feedback and prompt me to make my work better. I think that that's a really fundamental threshold for people to cross. The third one, which I'm not even sure that I've crossed yet, becomes much more about a highly integrated workflow scenario. People who I think have spent thousands of hours using generative AI tools are usually pretty good at this, whereas they're working on multiple documents with multiple AI tools, some generative AI tools, some other kind of old-fashioned AI tools, and it's a much more integrated, sophisticated kind of network that they're navigating to use these tools. So that's where I think we can start to see some potential about where this might go. Once people start to cross those thresholds in greater numbers, then I think we'll see a much more sophisticated kind of complex relationship between humans and machines that feeds into various different workflow processes in complex ways. So that's I'm seeing some people who are kind of getting pretty good at doing that already. I'm not one of them. So that's the sort of sense that we're getting of this.
Yeah, this is already kind of shifting into a discussion around what are possible opportunities and maybe also risks and downsides and benefits, and what challenges do students meet when they interact with AI. We had this also before. What do the learners kind of need to really leverage the situation? Not how AI has to progress, but maybe also how do learners need to understand how to best interact and leverage AI for their benefit. And attached to the other question, but I think we'll get to this a bit later, is it something we want? What can society gain from this, and what can learners gain, or what might they lose, and where do we want learners to learn how to leverage this technology, or where we would want to AI to progress in a way that the learners don't have to adapt in the same way. But these are many questions at once. So easing into this, so what challenges do you think that learners meet when interacting with AI? Where do they struggle to really get the benefit out of this? And I'm basically opening up the floor.
I
And
can
you?
go with that. First, I think first and foremost for any new technology, not only with AI, but previously internet or computer, PC, is we start with literacy. Literacy is not simply as important that the learner need to know how to use AI, but the how is a big question. It's not like if you know how to turn on a laptop, doesn't mean that you can use a laptop for your learning or for your work. Same with AI. If you know how to open the AI and chat with that, doesn't mean that your literacy is enough. And different level and different layer of literacy. And now it's come to one of the big questions that I'm also trying to seek for the answer now. What kind of literacy I needed? What kind of skill set? It goes different from the internet. I mean, people can go there if they know the good way to search for information, then they can get the information. I mean, the process is dynamic compared to the previous technology, but it's not dynamic enough in comparison to AI. And the dynamicity of AI is create a lot of complexity in the literacy. And that's the first thing. The learner need to know the literacy, what kind of new skill they need to interact. I mean, one of good example is that nowadays many young learner they easily interact with the PDF, I mean the ebook or e-reading, which are not a phenomenon about 20 years ago. Because they learn a new skill set. They learn how to use all the bookmark, all the highlighting, all new function that the ebook provide. I mean, this is a different way from the traditional book. Same with the internet. And now with the AI, what kind of those new skill and how they process? That's the first question. And secondly, after they have those skills, then I think your question before is a very good one. And I completely agree that it's not one way, but it's both way at the same time. Because from the education side, we have to educate a learner, or we have to find a way for a learner to learn to live and learn with AI. But on the opposite side, AI is not static. What we see ChatGPT in the start in the beginning of, I mean, in November 2022 until now, it's completely different. And the video I just showed you is completely different from what we see in 2022. And that process doesn't stop here. Those companies still advance on the AI, different technology and different direction. And so how the technologies, especially education technologies, can develop AI and different tool or different AI to work with human. That's also a question from the technical side. But on the other side, for the educator, how we can empower students to work with AI. And that's two approaches must come together side by side. So otherwise, I mean, one simple logic is that if we educate a learner now to learn and live to the current AI, 5 years later, that's maybe outdated. Because new technology come out, new capacity of AI come out. On the opposite side, if technologists just pull out different AI tools without consider the risk in education or the risk in the long-term effect of what AI can damage the cognitive offload or reliance of a student on the technology, then that may not be helpful, but also risky as well. And I think that is the two-way approach, two-folded approach we need to consider. And perhaps I pass to Chun to comprehend any other opinion.
Okay. Perhaps I also can share something about I think we can distinguish the two different contexts. One context is that if we just focusing on the using of the chatbot, then the challenges our students facing when using the generative AI, I think fundamentally is still students the basic literacy. That means whether students can use the language proficiently enough, at least their mother tongue language, something like that, to make sure that human beings can interact with the AI chatbot agent. And another important thing is the critical thinking skills, students' critical thinking skills. So in this context, that our teachers still play a very essential role to let students know that epistemically, that students need to be sophisticated enough to know that not all the generative AI generated, they are not accurate. Another context, I would like to refer to what Jason just mentioned about the importance of human and AI, their hybrid learning context. Then I think as human and computer interaction designers, we may also need to take this into consideration, because using the generative AI is not just as a traditional way that we're thinking about to improve the learning by to make sure that students, the cognitive load won't be quite high in the learning environment. Yeah, but we, with another new dimension added, then, or if we take the cognition at the group level, actually the dimension will be much more complex than before. Yeah, so in this part, actually, designers also can do something to think about how to help to lower students' cognitive load and engage students. For example, as the cases I shared with you, that for our young learners, if we can provide them the pictures, it can help them to be more engaged in the learning activities, because compared with the text, it's easier for the young learners, the foreign or second language learners to process the information. But for AI, it will be much more challenging if we would like to do something beyond the text. Then this part, yes, how the although the case Andy shared with us at the very beginning of our session, that AI can do something at the multimodal level, but I think this part for AI is still quite challenging, how to triangulate the unstructured data like image, video with the text to better promote our students can interact with the AI, or using the AI to promote our learners, their own collaborations. Yeah. Okay, that's all.
So we talked about what learners may feel as challenges, and we talk about empowerment is important and engaging learners at this point. And Jason, at the beginning, you said that learners who are better at understanding their own learning can leverage this technology. So might this be, in your opinion, a way to not so much look at if learners learn how to interact best with AI, that they need to understand what they need for learning, not so much for performance, but for actually learning and what learning processes AI can trigger. Maybe Jason, you want to jump in on this?
I think so, and I'm talking obviously from the context in which I work here in Australia, and we do have a big systemic problem that starts somewhere around primary schooling, elementary schooling, depending on which part of the world that you're in, and the conversation with students about how their learning works is not heading in the right direction. So what ends up happening is, by the time they get through to higher education, a lot of them are not very good at directing their own learning. So we ask them to do a lot of self-directed learning in university studies and in higher education in our context, and I know many other contexts around the world. And the sort of experiences they're having in other parts of education are not setting them up well to do that. They're very structured. There's a lot of high stakes external exams. So they're not getting a lot of opportunities to learn about their own learning. So for many students, they then find themselves in a situation where they're dealing with a high level of uncertainty, or I think Andy's already mentioned about how much things are changing. So if we're seeing tools that are constantly going through processes of change, and we have students who are not very good at being able to adapt because they don't necessarily understand those learning processes very well, it's not a good formula for students knowing how to integrate this stuff into their learning. And then it's not setting them up very well for what happens after their formal higher education, because they're going to continue to need to have the kinds of adaptive skills that are going to be necessary as the technology continues to evolve over time. So in our context here, this is a big systemic problem, that students don't have the kinds of adaptive skills and knowledge. It's not deeply integrated into their educational experience. And if we're going to help students to get the most out of AI, particularly generative AI, in their studies and in their life later on, we need to shift back to focusing more on those kinds of adaptive skills, because it's really hard to predict. Again, Andy's already mentioned this. It's hard to predict where the technology is going to go. And we have to prepare students for that world where there is going to be that uncertainty there. I know that it's not like this everywhere around the world, but it's a big problem here in Australia. And it's something that we need to really address to help students to develop those right kinds of skills. And a lot of them are focused on a lot of the things that we've mentioned here: self-regulated learning, critical thinking, creativity. That stuff's really important to be able to be adaptive in a world where AI is changing things all the time.
So does anyone want to add to this? Or otherwise, I think I know where this the answer might go. But if we include AI more as in a collaborative sense with learners, is this something we will want? What can we gain as a society, and what might we lose? This is not merely about, is it inevitable, basically, but about what is the narrative we would like to have? Where would we want this ideally to go, kind of way? Someone want to start? Andy?
I can start again. Actually, I think this is a very complicated question. And first and foremost, I want to know is the technical question or the biological question, but the philosophical question. How do we see AI and how we see human as well? And that's the ongoing debate. I'm not sure which is correct or not, because I think that debate in philosophical has been for century now, not only decades, but century now. Because the problem is that the way AI works, they are trying to mimic some human process, may not reach the capability of human, or may outstanding the capability of human in some aspect, but they mimic the process, and they have the same way input data, process the data, and have some output to the world. And also it depends on the philosophical how we look at the world and so on. But to be more specific in this context about cognitive learning, and to make it I'm not sure if it's like the right wrong, but mean to make it more helpful to the learner. Then I go back to what Jason just mentioned, the metacognitive thinking of the student. We need to put much more focus on problem that we have been known as a learning scientist for years, but in practice, there's a lot of lacking and gaps. I mean, how we can boost the learning motivation of the student. That's the first thing. Because if the learner they have motivation to learn, then we don't have to care about they do cheat in their learning or not. If they have the motivation to learn by themselves, we have to teach a student how to be more critical thinking. They know how to evaluate information. Because I mean the same thing with the internet age. When the internet come out and many students they just copy the answer from the internet. And later on, the new generation, they learn how to search for different sources and evaluate the accuracy of the information they get. But later on, I mean, similar thing will happen with AI. There's we new skill set required. But on top of that, we cannot catch up one by one because we may be outdated by the time we introduce to the student, as Jason mentioned. So I'm completely agree with Jason that we should focus on the metacognitive thinking. And just like teach the student how to adapt to different changes in the world. how to think about their own thinking process, reflect on that, and how to evaluate their output and their practice, even their practice. And so each individual learner will be the researcher themselves. It's not only the knowledge by the researcher to the student, but each student may be the small researcher, not fully in theoretical sense, but in terms of practically. And I think that's why we can prepare the student for the future long run.
So basically, what we discussed before, focusing on the learner, focusing not so much always about the evolving technology, but on the learner and the learning processes and what they need within their learning so that they can best adapt and leverage. Yeah. Anyone else who wants to jump in on the question, what we can gain, we might potentially lose by integrating AI more as a collaboration partner in CSCL, but also in other forms of learning interaction.
Yeah, perhaps I can say a little bit about using the generative AI as a collaborator. It reminds me to think about when we would like to introduce some new emerging technologies in the classroom environment. And the role of the technology is to promote the collaborative learning. Now we notice that sometimes the learning effectiveness perhaps not as good as we expected. Sometimes it's because of the teachers, PD, perhaps we prepared is not so sufficient enough. Then the way that the teachers enact the learning activities is not the way we assumed. So for the students collaborative with generative AI, I think also the same thing. Perhaps we also need to make sure our students can have some kind of the competency and the specific knowledge about the collaborative learning. Then using the generative AI at the beginning perhaps can try to guide our learners to be a good collaborators. Then after that, it can be fate then in the process. Just thought about this. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, thank you. Jason, do you want to add to this question?
Oh, just said pretty much what I would have said. Yeah, I agree. Absolutely.
Okay, so then let's move on to the third kind of big question block, although we covered a bit in this discussion already. So where are we heading? Where do you see this field going in the next years? Which means the research on the one hand be more in the shorter and maybe even longer term, but obviously also the application, although I know we can't foresee all the technological developments, but where do we, based on what we've seen now, think this field of research and application might be going?
I think there's kind of 4 parts to this. And I think because it's such a complex problem, particularly given that we have a lot of questions that I think need to be answered, both fundamentally in terms of, computer-supported collaborative learning as a basic kind of set of mechanisms. That's kind of the first problem, is that I think we're still trying to figure out what the mechanisms look like. And I think quite a bit of the conversation that we've had so far has been around that, because I think that there's still some uncertainty about the dynamics and the mechanisms of how that works. And I think that there are really critical questions there. So that's one part. The second part, I think, is that we need to do more theory work, theory building or adapting current theories. If we're going to think about an AI as a collaborative partner in learning, do we need to rethink some of those kinds of co-regulated learning models? Do they fit here? Do they not fit here? Do they need to be adapted in some way to work for this kind of scenario? And then the third level is, I think that we need sort of observational type work. We do a lot of that work in my team, trying to understand how are these things playing out in real educational environments? So not focus on the mechanisms in kind of more lab-based settings, but what's happening in the wild kind of thing. Now, what we should hopefully see across those three levels is some, and they do this a lot in biology and places like that, some level of consilience. So what we're finding across theory building mechanisms and observations in the real world is some sort of relationship there that is identifiable. And from that, then I think we start to have some translational work that could influence policy and practice, which I think is the fourth area. So one of the problems I see in kind of the history of ed tech research in the past is that we have one or two of those pieces, but not the whole lot. And we end up with weird things kind of happening as a result of that. You know, there's a lot of hype around something. Electronic whiteboards is a good example. We had a huge thing here about electronic whiteboards about 20 years ago. Not all the pieces were in place. Like, we didn't understand the mechanisms properly, and there wasn't a proper approach to being able to help people to use that technology in practice. So if we're going to find a place where we're going to get really good setups where students are using AI as a partner in their learning, I think we need to have all of those pieces in place for that to happen. And we've got a lot of work to do across all four of them, I would say.
Yes, Yun?
Yes, because Jason just mentioned the importance about the theoretical building, theory building. Yes, I fully agree with this point. And another thing is that in the context of the language learning, for example, I think the role of the generative AI can play in the language learning. The other existing tools cannot replace it. So the role of generative AI towards the language learning is another level towards the researchers working in the technology enhanced language learning. So we may need to think more about it. Yeah. And another thing is relevant to the systematic review my team is working on. We just finished it. It's about the role of the generative AI can play in the immersive learning environment. Yeah, because we noticed that actually about 20 years ago, the classification about the role of AI is still not so clear. That some of the researchers, they classify the immersive learning as a kind of the AI application in teaching and learning. Yeah, but after that, there are a lot of changes, and the way we can classify the AI are not consistent. But according to our review, we noticed that a lot of the studies, when they are talking about the combination of AI and the immersive learning, still focusing on the AI and the virtual reality learning environment, but not sufficient attention has been paid to the augmented reality or the mixed reality, particularly at the pedagogical level. I think that part, perhaps we can do more about it. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Andy.
Yes, I can continue that. That's a very nice question as well, because we are right working on those one. Because I think that's AI, we think about AI as the process of information input and process information output. But when we're talking about AI, it's the whole technology or concept in different viewpoint. And also what's the present of AI when we're talking about this topic of the seminar today, the AI as a qualitative CSCL partner. And as a partner, so there's a more than just the process of data or the answer to the information. But as a partner, then there's several questions, even as a human partner. So first, what's the present of that partner? Present physical present or virtual present? I mean, in CSCL these days, it's not only limited to learning in the chat or online learning, but it's very dynamic these days as well. If we follow recent work in the journal of CSCL, I mean, many learning contexts now is integrated with the computers or some kind of digital technology. And that's first thing as a partner, what's the present of it? And secondly, it's not only the actual presentation of the AI, but how the learner perceives the AI, that's also influenced. And there's lacking of study in this domain. We are trying to work for that, hopefully some resource until next year. And from the pursuit of learners, we influence on how they learn with the AI. Because that's, I think it's not only with AI. If we are studying with some human partner in collaborative learning, how we perceive how human partner, that's also influence on the CSL process we have with our partners. And also how that process can happen and the division of labor, that's also contributed to that as well. And some comment in the chat talking about offload in cognitive offload or unload. And that's also related to the division of labor in CSL. How the AI touch part into that and how the human touch part that. Because even in the human CSL, different team member play different role as I mentioned in the beginning. And who's a leader? Is it a human as a leader of that collective learning, or is it a shared leader? Shared leadership can happen as well. Or is it the AI who help with the CSCL process as a facilitator? Then that's many questions and many dynamic with different contexts. And I mean, at the moment, I have to say that this phenomenon is quite new, relatively new compared to other phenomena. And the development of AI is very fast as well, which what we haven't foreseen before. And those kind require a lot more work to give the complete answer on any question. To be honest, I don't have those questions myself, but I think that's also fascinating for us as researchers because that's a question to be answered, and that's a question to be dived into. And for the foresee of next 5 years, I mean, Jason mentioned a lot. I look at different aspects. Rather than what's the actual work, I will look at nature of it. First of all, I think the nature I expected it will be multidisciplinary. I mean, even transdisciplinary. I mean, it needs a lot of perspective and combination, interaction of them. It's not purely education side or technical side or policy side as well. I mean, each of the researcher have to communicate and learn from different disciplines to comprehend the practice or even research. And secondly, I think the theory building, I do not disagree with that because I think some of the theory may need also revised as well, or at least review because the phenomenon is have changed. It's not the same with the past. So theoretical building will be played as a foundation, very important one. But alongside with that, I think the bridging between theory and practice, this will be more vital. I mean, some of the learning theory we have been know for decades, like self-directed learning theory or self-directed learning. But how we can actually bridge the gap between theory and practice, that will be the big question. And to add up with my thinking, I will share a little bit the three slides that I have. So I mean, different three quote to be specific. Can you see my screen? Yeah, the first one, I think sooner or later, or even now, we can see a lot of technology in the classroom. Because I think that's not something we choose to be, but that's some adaptation with the society. It can happen slowly or fast without or without consciousness, but it's something that happens eventually. And AI is one of those technology anyway. The next quote is from the Bill Gates. It's not a new phenomenon with AI. It's with the education technology in general. And we need to get the kids to work themselves. I mean, the learner to work themselves. And that's not only the technology capability, but that's also the teacher role, how they can motivate the learner to learn and give them enough motivation or show them how to learn. And the last one, I think something is express my thinking, at least. I think that eventually we have to adapt to the new ways of working and learning. I mean, internet has shown us the evidence for the past 20 years, the way we are doing the socialization now, the way we are working now. I mean, for example, if I come to our office one day and if there's no internet during that day, I have to come home. I cannot perform any work without internet these days. And that's some kind of reliance, but that's a new characteristic of the reality that I'm living in. And that's the reality of many of us in the modern world. And I think that reality is shaping now with AI as well. And in the future, I think it's not a question if it's something common role. It has become bit more a part of us, even with these days with ChatGPT. And that's also come with not only education, but any field, any sector, the demanded skill will change. Or at least the characteristic of those skill will change eventually. And that's our role as an educator to equip the learner the capacity to cope with all those. And I would like to end my talk here with this talk, man.
Thank you. So we've heard a lot where this can go, and Annie, thank you for pointing out the role of teachers and educators, where we didn't discuss much within this hour so far. So basically, it's obviously hard to say where this field might go or where it needs to go when there are so many open things, and it's a broad topic. It's and it touches upon what technology can do, but also what learners can do, how learning processes work, and what theories we need to rethink, maybe adapt, maybe some not. So as a community, what can we do to tackle this huge issue? We already heard about interdisciplinary work, and of course this goes in this direction, but is there anything the community can do to tackle these issues?
One of the biggest things that I think I've learned a lot from as a researcher is, yes, interdisciplinarity, absolutely. You know, I work in educational psychology. I don't have technical skills, so working with people who are, you know, from computer science areas, I think is massive in particular, and not simply that group, but they've been particularly important as partners in doing the research on this. But I think the other thing that I found really beneficial is working with tech companies, working with policymakers, working with educators, because I think that bringing those different viewpoints together is critical. The other party, of course, that we need to think about here is students. So having students involved as partners in investigations and helping to understand what's going on, I think is absolutely critical. The piece that we research is trying to put a lot of the bits together. So we do some work on mechanisms, some work on theory, and some work on kind of observations, the bits that I was talking about before. And we also try to do some translational work as well. And having partners, not just research partners, but partners in the industry, in education more broadly, and in educational technologies, the tech companies, I think has been huge for us to be able to take steps forward rather than us doing the work and kind of guessing what was going on out there. That's been enormously rewarding. Some of the work that we do on mechanisms, that's less so, because we need to be able to look at these collaborative arrangements under more kind of controlled conditions. But certainly in the other work that we do, it's been really beneficial and really powerful to have all of the kind of key stakeholders together to try and figure out what's going on and think about a way forward. You know, the work that we do has really benefited from those conversations, definitely.
So including all stakeholders, not forgetting the students, of course, in the work and working together in this. So Yun, you want to?
Yeah, I can't agree more, because for our project, actually, we have to collaborate with different experts from different areas. Usually the problems we would like to solve, they were initiated by our school teachers. But as researchers, we need to make a decision what kind of the problems might be solved and what kind of the problems they may be relevant to our own research areas. Yeah, this is more from the research our own selves perspective. But I also agree with Jason that sometimes it's a little bit difficult if we just would like to working with the researchers from the computer science department like this, because if we would like to implement something, the new technology in the classroom environment, perhaps the technical part is not so attractive to the computer science background experts. Yeah, but I think it's a good approach. If we can work with the industry, then they may help us to solve the problems. And what we need to do, another thing working with school teachers is that because teachers, they can provide us some kind of the data to train the system to make sure that it can customize to the teacher's needs. Yeah, but that part perhaps not so attractive to the person who just interested in the technical part. Yeah. Okay.
I can briefly continue on this one because I'm in the both side. I'm the faculty of education and psychology. At the same time, I'm also adjunct professor in ITE. And I think that we need more and more of a bridge because it's difficult to connecting two parties without any bridge. And those bridges need to be established with the interest for both parties. And I think that's a challenging but doable task in my opinion. And I think more and more efforts need to put into those areas. And from the reason, I think one of the things I think is that for research, I hope that it's not only about react to the phenomenon, what happened, but as a researcher, I think that we need more and more foresee what will happen and prepare for those. Because this has been, before it's not very obvious, but in the last 5 years, we can see these very vital questions now, how we can foresee the near future. I mean, COVID happened. It's very struggle for research or educator to catch up with that. This may took a few years. And then right after COVID, now the ChatGPT, the generative AI in general, and that's another wave. Rather than react continuously, how can we better repair the education system with more prediction and foreseeable change and repair for them? And I mean, that's easier to say than done, I guess, because it's more difficult to predict what actually happened. And the other thing, I think, need to focus on the core, not only to understand the core, but how we can research on different solutions for the core. I mean, the core is that how we can promote the metacognitive thinking, how we can promote the learning motivation. Those are the core, and that can help to solve many problems. And if we are success as a researcher to dive in those areas, I think it will be much better for the future when technology change faster and faster now. It's not, I mean, before it's fast, but now I have to say that acceleration is improved a lot, and we have to be more proactive rather than reactive. Thanks.
Yeah, so basically having a kind of forward-looking attitude, but still also focusing on the things we know we can build on about, for example, metacognition, about collaborative learning and so forth, and strengthening this to help us ourselves to prepare for what the future may bring. Okay, I think at this point, I thank you first very, very much for this discussion, and I'll give over to Elizabeth now to coordinate the Q&A and see what questions the audience might have come together with in the last roughly 1.5 hours.
Yes. So thanks for even some of you panelists have already answered some of the questions. And I believe this discussion has been relatively one of the more tougher discussions to talk about because collaborative learning with AI is a really broad topic. So I think the panelists have really brought in their different perspectives from be it from Australia, Singapore, language learning, and even from different perspectives to even talk about these areas of how they can foster collaborative learning with AI. And I think towards the end, there was a mention about we need more research. You need theoretical frameworks that can help learners to harness AI and to build their critical thinking, metacognitive learning, or metacognitive regulation. So maybe towards that question, could we have a bit more, maybe that's related to some of the questions in the chat. Is there any like research area or research focus or theoretical framing that could help in terms of building learners, collaborative learning with self-regulate learning and AI? Yeah, it's open to all three panelists. Would Jason like to go first?
It's a good question. I mean, I think that a lot of the sort of self-regulated learning, socially shared regulated learning, co-regulated learning type theories are a good starting point. Obviously, we're in a different situation here in that we're talking about machines taking the role of a collaborator. And I think that in my mind means that we've got to wonder whether or not those kinds of theoretical framings work in the way that we would hope that they would work, because we are dealing with a very different kind of entity here. But I certainly think that they're a great starting point. You know, and if we need to adapt and change to understand what's happening and how those dynamics are playing out, then it's a good, you know, a good place for us to begin to do that. And I know that there are plenty of places around the world, including where Andy is, where there is a lot of work happening on this. So
Thanks, Jason. So over to Andy. Yeah, he mentioned socially shared regulation, which I know in Finland is a very big thing. Yeah.
Yes, I think that's a good, as Jason mentioned, I think this would start with the basic core one. I mean, shared learning, there's several models. I mean, first of all, the Zimmerman one, or Winnie and Hadwin, those are basic of shared learning, or socially shared relation of learning in CSCA context by Javela and Hadwin. And recently, I mean, as Jason mentioned, I mean, first of all, we need to test if those models can be applied in new phenomena. Because human AI collaboration in learning is some kind of new phenomenon. We're looking at different aspects and different role of the AI. And first, we have to see those model if they are applicable or not. We need more evidence in those. And secondly, we may extend or look at different model to explain them. And I just put in the chat to everyone one of the example of our recent work with Javala and Hadwin on how we can extend the human AI collaboration for shared relation in collective learning. But I have to say that that's a very preliminary work, and I think that we need more and more in this direction.
Definitely, yeah. There's, I think it's as we are moving as the plane is moving, right? We are researching as the plane is moving. You anything to add about this topic about theoretical frameworks regarding collaborative learning and AI?
Yeah, actually, we have talking about the socially self-regulated learning, but I'd like to highlight another point about for example, peer assessment. I think the theory, the foundational based on the peer assessment, perhaps can add some value to this area, because the peer assessment we also can treat it as a kind of the specific type of the collaborative learning. Yeah. Just the quick idea jumped in my mind. Yeah.
Peer assessment. AI is a peer. So assessing the peer. So AI is a peer assessor, the other peer.
Yes. There are different possibilities, but as Jason mentioned, that it should not be just linear developed based on the existing theory. Perhaps add some new dimensions we need to take into consideration. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Are there any other questions from the audience? Is there any audience member that would like to unmute him or herself? Or you could just put it into the Q&A form earlier. We've answered most of the questions, but I think some of the questions can be rediscussed because they are definitely very big questions that are not easily answered. Anybody from the audience, like from the participants who would like to ask any question, you can unmute yourself, or you could put it in the Q&A form.
I think the audience can unmute, but you can put it in a Q&A form. If you have any more questions to our panelists while you have the chance.
Okay, I see somebody has put it in the chat. Okay, so there's a question by Qian Hui. You can actually put it in the Q&A, but we'll ask the question. This person asks, what are the issues that need to be paid attention to in the actual teaching of I believe this is English for, or is it second language? And second language in secondary schools in computer-supported collaborative learning. I believe EFL stands for English as second learning, a second language. I'm not too sure what the acronym stands for in your context.
English as foreign language learning, right?
Foreign language learning.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess Wenyin, would you like to answer that question?
May I clarify the question is that the teacher's role when AI used to promote students English as foreign language learning, right? It seems that we cannot see the question.
It's in the chat. So basically this person is what are issues that need to be paid more attention when you are teaching English as a foreign language in secondary schools in using computer-supported collaborative learning.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think the question per se a little bit broad, but based on my experience, just want to emphasize one point is that when we are talking about the collaborative learning, we need the language as a medium to promote the collaborative learning. But in the context of either the second language learning or foreign language learning, actually, the target language plays a dual role. The role also as a medium to for the communication, also the role as the target students to learn. So sometimes because of the constraint of the language proficiency, it affects students' collaborative learning. Then this question seems that not so relevant to the AI. So I didn't talk about the AI's role in this area, but I just want to share with you our experiences, particularly for the researchers. If you would like to more focusing on analyzing the interactions that happened in the foreign language learning or second language learning context, then sometimes this is a challenge we need to face. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We have one last question and then we'll take this and then we'll end. And this is by Carol Chan. Thanks for the, I'll just read out. She says, thanks for the many fruitful discussions on how AI can be a collaborative partner and how current frameworks such as shared regulation can work. Just wondering how AI can support and perhaps develop new ways for supporting collaborative knowledge building. So I guess bringing this to collaborative knowledge building. I know this is a big question. So I guess I know we can't fully answer the question, but maybe panelists can just take your shot, one of two quick points. So in the context of collaborative knowledge building, which uses, it can use tools to build knowledge together. So how can AI support that? Just any points?
That's kind of the big question, isn't it?
Yes.
I think that's really the big question. I think we're starting to see some clues of that, but it's really early to figure out what that's going to look like and what the potential is. I think about some of the work that's happening in health, for example, where they've got human and AI collaboration, where there's all sorts of amazing things that are being figured out in health and medicine. And I'm starting to see some clues about how that collaborative knowledge building process could play out. But again, I think we've still got to do more research to figure it out. That's at least my sense.
Thanks, Jason. Andy? Yep.
And from a different perspective, I think first we may need to revise even a core. What kind of knowledge will be built, will be constructed? Because first of all, I mean, the history of education has been changed a lot by history. I mean, by technology. For more like I mean, like memory. I mean, in the old day, we teach a student. We want them to remember as much as information as knowledge as possible. Then Google come out, knowledge and competencies and skills set has been changed. And then the next step will be not only about how they intervene on a current process, but I bet that there will be new process and new type of knowledge we have to target. Before we answer that question, I don't think that it's worthwhile to reinvent the wheel. Because if we just apply AI into the own format or the own process or the own type construction of knowledge or the own targeted knowledge, then I bet that the own kind of previous knowledge can, I mean, theory framework can be used. But the question moving forward, is it will applicable or not? And how much it remain and how much it will change? And I think that's a big question now to answer. And for that, I have to say that I haven't seen the solution yet. I'm still working forward that.
Yeah, so we are here to, I mean, when you want to say a quick word?
Yeah, a quick word. Because using the AI to promote, for example, the students for brainstorming, I think this is not so difficult. But we face the challenges that when students they are doing the collaborative knowledge building, then how to promote students to improve their ideas constantly. So this part, perhaps the AI can play some roles. For example, the provide different mode of the information to attract the students, and the students may be motivated to continue their discussion, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And with this, I mean, there's lots of thoughts that we have shared. And with this, Linka, would you like to close the session? Thanks so much.
Yes. I'll just Lung-Fan, can you put up the slide? Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming here. I think we had a really interesting discussion. It was a really broad discussion because it's just such a broad topic. So thank you all for bearing with us. I really, really thank our panelists for being here, sharing their work and their ideas and their insights. So this has been really interesting. On behalf of the APSCE, I would like you to all fill out the feedback form. You can see you will be able to access this with the QR code on the slide. And otherwise, we'll be closing the session. So thank you again, everyone, for attending, and also obviously the panelists, but also our attendees. And yeah. Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye.
Yeah.